We haven't seen a driving game on the Famicom in a long time. I think the previous one was Chase HQ, which was from December of '89. So over 150 games ago. Astro Fang is a post-apocalyptic vehicular combat game that most closely resembles Mach Rider, Nintendo's game about a futuristic motorcycle. This is the first game released by super obscure developer-publisher A-Wave. This era of the Famicom is bringing us a lot of small developer-publishers made up of people who quit the big companies to start their own. It looks like a lot of A-Wave's game development talent came out of Sega, who owned part of the company, though they worked on graphics design for games before this, including the Famicom disaster Miracle Rope-In. The story of Astro Fang is vague. You're not on Earth, it's another planet that's undergone totally apocalyptic events. But there's still one highway remaining for you to drive, so it's time to get your Fury Road on. There are 6 stages in Astro Fang, and each of them consists of a long stretch of highway. The A button accelerates, the B button brakes. You start out with 99 missiles with which you can take out hostile cars, and you fire those by pressing up. The missiles follow the road exactly, going around corners if the road turns. That makes lining up your shots kind of tricky at some points. You also have to have missiles to defeat the boss at the end of the stages. The minimum quantity seems to be about 15, but you're going to want around twice as many. Your car has one more trick up its sleeve. Hitting down on the D-pad shrinks it. This doesn't change the handling or the speed. The only thing it really does is prevent you from firing missiles. It's supposed to help you avoid attacks, but there's really only one point where that helps. Because after you beat the boss of a stage, the game has a bomber show up and you have to avoid them for a few seconds. It's a weirdly cruel thing to throw at somebody after they've completed the level. There's no time limit per se on the stages, but you have a fuel gauge. And you're given more than enough gas to complete a level. Assuming you don't crash, that is. Running into a stationary obstacle will cause you to flip over, and that is very costly. You lose 2 bars of fuel and 400 points when that happens. Because you have more than enough time to complete the course without running out of gas, I actually recommend taking it easy. Use that brake. Slow down for those corners. The game can play music or engine sounds, but not both. And you hit select to alternate between which one of those you hear. There are power-ups that you can pick up on the road. There are these balls with a P in the middle. They always appear dead center of the road, and since you typically won't have enough time to react once they appear, the best option is to always drive in the middle. The blue P refills your gas gauge to full, while the red P makes you invulnerable for about 20 seconds. When you're invulnerable, you can ram the other cars off the road. At some points on the road, you'll encounter shops, and these are marked on the map at the beginning of stages. Pull off to the side and brake, and then you can spend the points that you earned on equipment. You can get more missiles and fuel, of course. I happen to like the tire spikes that will let you sideswipe cars and send them flying. Getting the strong body will let you ram them from behind. The snow tires are only useful in particular sections where the road is covered with ice. You'll have plenty of warning that that's coming up, though. One problem with these power-ups is that you lose them when you crash. So they're very expensive, and it's possible to lose them before you do anything with them. You get points to spend at the shop just by driving, those tick up automatically, and you get 100 points for each enemy you defeat. Except for the boss, who gives you 5,000 points. So crashing and losing those 400 points is pretty costly here too. At some points the road will fork on you, and sometimes one of the branches has a shop on it and the other doesn't. Usually the way without a shop is a shortcut. The bosses in Astro Fang are all the same. A big truck that drops bombs out the back on you. Once you have the spacing down so that you're always just off of it, these aren't too difficult to defeat. Unfortunately, the enemies that attack you like this have a bad tendency to hit you repeatedly once you've taken one hit. So you'll crash due to one hit, and then the moment that you've recovered, you crash again. If you defeat the boss, and then get past the bomber afterwards, a resupply vehicle will come in, give you more fuel, and a few more missiles. The missiles never get refilled to full, though. The most annoying thing for me in Astro Fang was that sometimes there's just stuff in the middle of the road. You can't see it before it reaches you, and so you'll just suddenly crash. Usually they're in the middle, but sometimes they're on the sides, and really the only option is to memorize where they're going to appear. Astro Fang has unlimited continues, but if you have to continue, you go back to the start of that course. And these can be about 5 minutes or so until you reach a boss. There are 2 cheat codes that you can use in Astro Fang. They're almost identical, with only the last button push changing. You can get a level select, where pressing the select button when you're on the map screen changes the stage you're playing. Or you could have infinite fuel, and since you only lose when you run out of gas, then you just drive through the whole game. In Japan, this is a really forgotten game, though I did find a couple of people who are fond of the car's design on the cover. How forgotten is Astro Fang? Well, you can get boxed copies for under 500 yen pretty easily. But past that, nobody seems to play it. And I kinda get it. This is a game that's just not quite good enough. It's not horrible. I actually think the driving's kind of smooth, and when you get the bump power-ups, the vehicular mayhem's fun. But I was always feeling like I wanted it to be just a little bit better. Astro Fang's the kind of game that you wouldn't have minded playing in 1990, but you're not going to give it a second thought 30 years later.